morning, dear people of the internet, and welcome to church, or criticizing the church, I should say. Did you know that you can attend church online nowadays? Which I actually genuinely think is incredible because I'm all for accessibility. The problem is, though, that most of these online church things that you can attend are from megachurches. I'm sure you've heard about them by now, and if not, we'll be diving into those today. For some context, I am not religious, but I did grow up religious as a Protestant, more specifically, and I did go to a Catholic primary school. I also have a degree in musicology, which means that I spend a lot of time analyzing media, in which also social media, and learning about cultural history stuff, which includes a lot of stuff about the church because my studies mostly focused on Western European music, and the church played a very big part in music history. So I had to learn about the context of that, of course. This won't be a scientific review of megachurches, of course, but I will dive into them from a historic cultural perspective and then tell you what I think based on that. I needed to tell you this context because everyone on the internet is biased, and some people seem to forget that a lot of the times, creators and also people who watch videos. So I'm biased, just like everyone else, and you need to know my bias before we dive into this, I think, which is in this case very important to the topic. Sometimes it's less important, but in this case I feel like it's very important because I have nothing against Christianity in general. This is video specifically about megachurches and not about beliefs, because megachurches seem like an incredibly weird construction to me, so we'll talk about that and see if that's true, and also see if they are cults, because a lot of people on the internet are saying that, but I'm not sure about that, so we will also answer that question. Before we look at some internet videos, we need to know what a megachurch is. In general, it's a church that draws in more than 2,000 people to like a sermon, but we need to be a little more specific because I'm talking specifically about the megachurches that get a lot of attention on social media, so that goes a little bit deeper, and that's important to know. A research study by the Hartford Institute for Religion Research shows that the following points are seen a lot in these megachurches: 2,000 or more persons in attendance at weekly worship, counting adults and children at all locations. So we already talked about that. A charismatic, authoritative senior minister, a very active 7-day per week congregational community, a multitude of diverse social and outreach ministries, an intentional small group system or other structures of intimacy and accountability, innovative and often contemporary worship formats, a complex, differentiated organizational structure. So hard words aside, community, big community, but also community building, as in friendships and all that stuff, lots of people, and the authoritative senior charismatic pastor. I feel like those are the most important things here. The same study also mentions that virtually all these mega churches have a conservative theology. That's a quote, and I will link this study. You can just read it for free if you want in the description, so you can check it out. Many on the internet promote these churches like just influencer type people who just go there and are like, see, this is great. So we can look what a sermon in these churches actually look like, because they're not very secretive about that.
Ever wondered what going to a mega church is like? Well, I went to Willow Creek Community Church in South Barrington, and it was pretty much like a huge mall instead of a church. It's crazy how big this thing is. We went to the cafe because we got there super early. We got some lattes, which was really good, honestly. We got the honey milk, oat milk latte, and here's our view coming up right here.
Yeah, this is decent.
Then they had a flower station, which was cute. They had buckets of flowers. You could pick your own bouquet and make it. Donna didn't choose to, as usual. And then here is the auditorium. They have several of them, but this was the main one that our service was in. Honestly, look at that. It's like a little concert. Like, these people had headsets on, and coming from a Catholic church where we don't do any of this, this was like an actual concert to me. I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. It was cool to see even just speeches and sermons delivered so differently. Like this lady with the spotlight on her, I feel like it kind of kept everyone here engaged better. And the sermon I didn't actually film, but it was good, and then it ended with a couple other songs. And honestly, this was probably the most engaging service I've been to. It was very interactive. People were dancing and singing. It wasn't quite as serious as I'm used to, which I thought was a good change up. So I will probably be back for another service here. If you guys are interested in checking it out, I would recommend doing so. And it really honestly helped me get closer.
Now, first and foremost, this creator found it very helpful that the service was so engaging to her, and I actually think that is great. Good for her. This creator said that she used to go to a Catholic church, but the church she now went to, I looked it up because she tagged it or whatever, is an evangelical church, so it's a different denomination. This is important because of something that happened in the year 1517. In that year, a German man called Martin Luther nailed a list of demands or critiques on the door of a church in Germany. Before he did that, the Protestant church didn't exist yet, only the Catholic church did exist. Luther found that the Catholic church had strayed away from the Bible and towards greed, for example. Because, again, for example, they were selling people spots in heaven. The churches were also showing their wealth by placing statues and other art in their buildings. Luther basically, it's more complicated than that, but Luther basically wanted the church to go back to the text of the Bible rather than showing off their wealth and luxury and visual beauty, which was a problem at the time because the common Joe didn't know how to read, and church sermons were held in Latin, but the common Joe also didn't speak Latin. So in a sermon, the pastor was just speaking Latin and saying stuff, and the people in the audience didn't know what the pastor was saying. So they didn't know what was in the Bible because the Bible was only written in Latin at the time. So when the pastor said something in, for example, German or other common languages, because there was no one Germany actually at the time, but when the pastor said something in common language, it had to be true, even though it maybe wasn't even in the Bible. You couldn't know because you didn't speak the language of the Bible. And Luther also vouched for the Bible be translated into common language so that people could actually read it. This action from Luther led to something called the Great Schism, in which the church split into two categories, the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church, which led to a bunch of other stuff, wars, whatever, very important, but not important to my story here. And the Protestant Church also had a lot of people with different opinions, so it also spread into lots of other congregations that we have now. For example, one of which is evangelical people, which this megachurch and most megachurches are part of. Evangelicism focuses on spreading the gospel. So if you see someone preaching out in public or at a grocery store, we've talked about that before, they are most likely evangelicists because that's part of their congregation and also these megachurches. So it's important to know that they exist because of this great chasm and splitting the church because of basically what Luther thought, and evangelicists basically were like, what's important to us is that we spread the gospel and what is actually in the Bible to people so we can draw in new people. So that's what they are doing, basically. There's a lot more to it, of course, but this is just the very basics. Why this history lesson is important is that this megachurch sermon is made to be engaging, and that it was more engaging than the Catholic sermon the creator of this TikTok is used to. To be fair, I was in a Catholic sermon last year, and the construction of the sermon didn't have seemed to go with the pace of the time we live in right now. Like, it did seem a little bit outdated with a lot of traditions, which is probably also due to where it was and a lot of other things that are culturally important to the context of where I was and what this megachurch sermon is. Like, it is very different. But the megachurches seem to be a lot better at engaging with younger people. So that is definitely a part of it, and that's also a part of why they are able to draw in so many people. But I do think that a circus kind of thing would make Luther turn around in his grave. I'm not sure if that's an English proverb as well, but we say that in the Netherlands, and you know what I mean. I don't think he would have liked this. Like, I don't think this would align with the ideas behind why the Protestant church exists in the first place. That looks very expensive, but the churches also have ways to get money, not only by selling flowers and selling coffee, which a lot of smaller churches give people free coffee after the sermon. Like, maybe the coffee is not great, but selling expensive coffee as part of going to the church experience looks very weird to me. And I'm also not going to church to buy flowers. Anyhow, this is not the only way that these churches get their money, because selling flowers and selling coffee can make you enough money to live off as one person or two people maybe. They have lot more money than that, and they have ways to get that.
Have you ever wondered how conservative megachurches get so much money? Yeah, there's one hidden little trick that they do that blow your mind. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So actually, used to work in a megachurch, don't anymore, really not a fan. And the whole process of getting tons of money for some of these megachurches starts right at the beginning. The trick isn't until the end. The beginning is important. And it begins with hype and friendship. You walk in the door, there's high fives, there's really horribly extroverted people that are shaking people's hands, that are out in front, that are doing their best to make friends with you. And then you take your kids. Your kids go to a place where there are inflatables and the teenagers have video games. It is like this epic, amazing first experience. It's like you're getting to go to this place where everybody loves you and wants to be your friend, and all of the people are having so much fun. And unless you show up on the one, like, we hate gay people sermon that happens every year, you are like, wow, this is pretty good. And the band is really good. And there's lasers. And I didn't know that lasers were part of church. And then at the end of that first visit, likely in the worship service, they say, hey, we've got a class for people who want to learn more about our church, and you should come to it. And you probably don't sign on the line for that time, but it's logged in your head. And then afterwards, there's follow-up. There's a text message. There might be somebody who leaves a gift, maybe even a fresh baked thing on your doorstep. And hopefully the pastor doesn't just show up unannounced, but sometimes that happens if they're old school. But the idea is you showed up, and all of these people really like you and really want to be your friend. Let's be clear, like I said before, there are some extremely extroverted people there that I think authentically really would like to be every person's friend there. They like to be every person's friend in the whole world. And then you go again, and they really lean into getting you to go to that membership class. You go to the membership class. Actually, I wrote one of those curriculums for one of these churches. And the class is full of love and all of the good things. And they most likely don't even mention the fact that they hate gay people. One of the things in the membership class is money. They tell you this lie that the Bible tells you that you should give 10% of your income to the church. And if you want to be a member, that's an important part of it. That's an expectation that you would give like 10% of your income to the church, or more if you want to. Everybody's okay with more. And the person teaching that part of the class will likely say they give 10% of their income to the church. They're on staff and they do that. What they don't tell you is that they were required to do so, sometimes in writing, but always in the employment paperwork there is an auto draft. Which brings us to the trick. You've now spent several weeks in study, you've had lots of people trying to be your friend and probably inviting you to lunch or dinner or whatever, and it's time for you to go and meet with a staff person to talk about membership because you're going to join the church. And they tell you a strange thing maybe to you. They ask you to bring your pay stub. Because as part of that membership process, before you actually go and join the church in front of everybody, they're going to look at your pay stub, they're going to calculate 10%, they're going to give you a bank draft form that will automatically deposit 10% of your income into the church's bank account. Automatically. Because they say the Bible says that the tithe is required, and the Bible doesn't say that. I've got a video on it. But here's the thing. The membership, the belonging to this group that has lasers and good bands, and your kids love it, and your teenagers love it. The requirement for belonging is an automatic bank draft. If you say no, you can't join. You're not a member. That's the trick. Not a trick as much as a manipulation. Not as much of a manipulation as like stealing money from people, but there it is. That's the trick. That's how they get their money. Now, not all of them do, but if you ever find a poor megachurch, it's because they're not doing this trick. Have you ever wondered how conservative megachurches get?
Now, as you might recall, megachurches have at least 2,000 people in them. However, a lot of them have more than 10,000, some even more than 100,000. So imagine how much money that is. Like, you don't have to sign up to be there, but as this pastor explained in this video, a lot of people feel like they need to do that. So there's at least a lot of money coming in, like 10% of your paycheck. Let that sink in a little. Let's say you go to a sports club to play football every week, and they ask you for 10% of your payslip. No matter how much that would be, you wouldn't do that, right? So why would you do that for this church? Well, this works in two ways. The first way, like the pastor said in the video, is they are crazy good at manipulating people, which is bad. And the other way, which is actually also part of that, but is called the magic circle, which is the feeling you get when you experience something with a lot of strangers. For example, when you go to a concert and it kind of feels very magical because you're bonding with so many strangers and you feel like you could fly. That is called the magic circle. It's an actual concept in media-based sciences. And to experience that every week is a great selling point for these churches. So basically, these churches draw you in with great experiences, then manipulate you into paying money so you can feel like you're contributing to making these great experiences happening for everyone. First of all, as you might recall, the Protestant church only exists because the Catholic church at the time, they don't sell people places into heaven right now anymore. But the reason the Protestant church exists in the first place is because they were coercing people into giving money so they wouldn't feel guilty and were less scared of dying. Now, these megachurches are in general not selling people places in heaven, but they are still guilt-tripping people into giving them money, which is problematic, which is what caused the church to split in the first place, which caused wars, basically. Second of all, what makes it even more problematic is that these churches get more money than they use to put on these big shows. And they also get tax exemption because they're a religious institution, so from all the money they get, they can just keep all of that, basically. And you can see that in the fact that they pay their pastors way too much money, in most cases. For example, one pastor gave his wife a $200,000 car, and another one had to sell his house, $15 million house, by the way, because he had some money problems. $15 million house! I don't even understand what that would look like. And a lot of these pastors pastors are known to live in gigantic houses with very expensive cars. Sure, being a pastor is a real job and they should get paid a living wage at the very least, but there is something as way too much, and this is it. I am not sure how they feel good because they get paid basically by the community members of these churches, who in most cases, if not all, have way less income than this pastor. That sounds wrong, right? Because the church is there also to help people, but they're helping them out of their money that they probably need a lot. I don't think that it matters what you believe in to see that it's morally wrong to change the church into a circus or a lottery, or to have their pastors live in gigantic mansions. Well, there are for sure at least some church members that are actually financially struggling and they still have to give away, or have, but they're still coerced in giving away their money to this church. Now, there's only one question left. Are the people that are calling this a cult on the internet, are they worried? And for that, I have found a cult checklist from a website called masterclass.com that we all use to check if these churches are actually cults. The first point is veneration of a single individual, meaning charismatic leaders are often at the center of most cults. As we have seen in the characteristics of megachurches, a lot of megachurches have a central pastor leader guy who is often charismatic. So I think we can say yes to this one. The second one is authoritarian control, meaning cultism hinges on encouraging maximum dependency. People in the cult must feel incapable of living an individual life outside of the norms of the group. These beliefs often go hand in hand with a worship attitude towards the group's authoritarian leader. I think this depends on the church and the person going to the church. I feel like the giving money, like so much money as in 10% of your payslip, which is an inherent part of your life, could be a part of that. And they're also trying to build very much community and have a lot of activities outside of the actual sermon every Sunday. So that could be a part of it. But also, I feel like these churches are more concerned with making money than what is going on in the lives of the people. So in that way, they're not trying to control the people. They just want a lot of money from them. So I'm not really sure. The third one is extremist beliefs. Cult members hold to very dogmatic and extreme beliefs. They are also unable to question these belief systems without fear of reprisal or punishment from the leader or other group members. I think this really depends on who you're asking. I think their homophobia, for example, is an extremist belief because I feel like spreading hate towards a group of people is extremist. I don't know about the punishment part because I feel like threatening and guilt tripping people so they don't go to hell is a punishment in a sense, but I feel like this website means something else. So I feel like this is a no, but also you can see it as yes. And the last one is isolation from society, and I think this is also a no in the same way that I think authoritarian control is also a no. So I think in conclusion that megachurches are not cults, but they definitely have red flag cultish characteristics sometimes, and I feel like that's enough to stay away from them. I cannot take them seriously as a religious institution. I respect the concept of Christianity and people who are serious about their faith, but I don't feel like these megachurches are really serious about their faith. They make it seem like it for sure, and sometimes there are pastors and people who are serious about their faith, and people in the audience are probably also serious about their faith, but megachurches as an institution, when they gather their brain cells, they know what they're doing most of the times, and I feel like they're not serious about it. So I can take them seriously as a religious institution, and they just want your money. Like, their faith is in money. This is my opinion with the cultural historical context that I have given you. If you want something fun and silly now, you can check out my web shop where I sell crochet stuff like this guy and zines that are silly, and you can help me with affording college if you do that. So I appreciate that a lot, and thank you for watching. I appreciate that also. If you like this video, please press those wonderful shiny like and subscribe buttons, and then I will see you next time. Ciao!